What's going on, my trainer club? Today we are going to look at the top Pokemon to use with your Elite TM in Pokemon Go to make sure that you guys are using this very rare resources to the best of your ability. So welcome to the trainer club. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Let me know in the comments below, are you going to purchase the Elite TM box, or are you going to wait until you hit the rank 7 in the Go Battle League this season and get one, or are you going to do both or neither? I am definitely curious to see what you guys are up to as far as the Elite TM, because in my opinion, this is going to go down as one of the most valuable pieces of the game, including the Stardust, including the Lucky Friends, and then Best Buddies can also be grouped, but more as a part 2 of this entire sequence. So today we're going to go over everything you need to know as far as Elite TMs and what Pokemon you may consider doing, because there's a couple different scenarios that we are going to cover as far as your Elite TMs goes. So scenario number 1 is going to be you are going to TM a Community Day Pokemon that you may have evolved before the Community Day, and it's a really good IV Pokemon, such as like a Metagross. Maybe you had 100% IV, you were super gung-ho about it, you evolved it, and then boom, we got hit with Community Days and they started releasing moves, and Meteor Mash is a very dominant moveset. That is scenario number 1. Number 2 is going to be you save your Elite TMs. I'm a big fan of proponent number 2 because unless it's very, very needed right now, I always suggest in Pokemon Go, which we have learned over the entire lifespan of this game, right, is that you have to be patient. Patience pays off in this game. Pokemon such as Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, Cobalion, we've seen it with 4 different legendaries that have come out with new moves that you cannot TM into. They were about to do it with Lugia with Aeroblast, and they're going to continue probably to do it in the future. So if you don't need the TM relevant right now, I wouldn't suggest just going and like, oh my gosh, I got an Elite TM, use it. It might be in your best interest that if it's not incredibly relevant for your team right now, you're like, oh, I already have a Metagross powered up with Meteor Mash. It already does work for me. I don't need it this instant to do my second one. I'm just gonna hold onto it, but that's kind of the Pokemon that I'm considering doing. That's gonna be scenario number 2. And then scenario number 3 is you don't feel like waiting for a Community Day, or you have an older Pokemon that you just really like and you wanted to have the Community Day moves, then you're gonna go ahead and evolve that Pokemon right now and use the TM. This is my least favorite scenario for the Community Day Pokemon, because in December, if all follows suit as it has last year, which it probably will, you're going to be able to evolve these Pokemon to be able to utilize them like this. So to waste an Elite TM, something that is so incredibly precious, because you don't get to get a charge move and a quick move. It's only one move that you're going to be able to Elite TM. So this is a very valuable resource. I really suggest you guys think about it. Hold on to these. Don't go gung-ho. Maybe at some point they will become more common, but right now they're very scarce. So use and try to picture which of those 3 scenarios is going to serve you best in your gameplay over the longevity of your Pokemon Go career. Definitely try these Pokemon out before you choose an Elite TM and then be like, oh man, I don't even want this Pokemon anyway. Now we're going to go over all the Pokemon that have the legacy moves. We're going to start off with the legendary Pokemon, and what other legendary Pokemon to start off than the Mewtwo. So Mewtwo is going to have 3 legacy moves on it. Number 1, I think you guys do know, is going to be Shadow Ball. Was the first move that it got that went legacy. It also went legacy with Hyper Beam, and then the more recent one is going to be Psystrike. So a lot of us may have like a Psystrike Mewtwo and are like, oh my gosh, I really want Shadow Ball on this, which is probably a decent idea. The one thing that I don't know about, think about it like this. If you guys have played, or maybe you haven't played, Giratina versus Mewtwo, I thought that it was going to be a landslide in the Giratina's favor. However, both shields coming up against each other, the Mewtwo charges faster than the Ominous Wind with the Psystrike and the Psycho Cut, so it can hit it quicker, and the damage that it does to it with the Psystrike is still like 2/3 of its health. It's a very powerful move. So to put on a Shadow Ball, like granted, yes, it would one-hit KO this Pokemon. And maybe if you're going up against a lot of Metagrosses, having that Shadow Ball would be very effective. But also, having another move on it, such as Ice Beam or Flamethrower, also very effective options. Ice Beam being a pretty quick charging move, and it hits dragons very hard. So that's definitely something you may want to consider as well. Maybe one reason why you may not TM a Shadow Ball and a Psystrike on the Mewtwo, even though it would be very cool looking, very dominant moves, something you may want to consider. On to the next legendary is going to also be an Armored Mewtwo with Psystrike. So maybe you got one a long time ago, and maybe it was a good PvP IV, IV, you could potentially go ahead and unlock Psystrike on this one. This one I'm a little bit less of a fan of just because it's so recent, but maybe you do have 100% from back in the day, you want to use it for Master League. It's already maxed out and it's missing the Psystrike. You may consider doing that move. Moving onwards, we are going to have the Generation 1 legendary Pokemon. So for this one, we have the Articuno with the Hurricane. If you are using an Articuno that does not have a Hurricane, you may consider doing this, especially maybe in like the Ultra League. There's a decent amount of fighting Pokemon, and this would be a great move to come through and hit some of the fighting Pokemon pretty hard. Because the other moves are going to be Blizzard, which is very hard hitting, but double ice moves on a Pokemon, kind of weird. And then we also have the Ancient Power, but it did get nerfed, so Hurricane may be a good option. The other move that we're going to talk about is going to be the Moltres move with Sky Attack. Sky Attack makes Moltres a very, very powerful Pokemon. So if you are using Moltres for this, or you want to use Moltres for a raid type attacker, Sky Attack may be a move that you may consider to power it up with. It is definitely a powerful Pokemon. I have 100% IV that does not have Sky Attack. Definitely a Pokemon that I'm highly consider using it with. And then finally, we have the Zapdos with the Thunder Shock. So Thunder Shock charges moves very fast. It is definitely a move to consider using it. If you do use the Melmetal has Thunder Shock. If you notice how fast its move charges, that is going to be similar to the Zapdos. So Zapdos did have this move, so it's definitely a Pokemon also to consider, and it's pretty relevant in the Ultra and the Master League as well. Maybe not in the top 20, but definitely a Pokemon that you may consider using if you so desire. And then finally, we have the Cobalion. Cobalion is a newer move with the Sacred Sword. However, the one thing about the Cobalion, which I'm not the biggest fan of, is that it doesn't have the best quick moves to be able to get it to its specials. Next, we are going to look at some Community Day Pokemon that may consider using the Elite TM on. So obviously we have every generation starter, right? So not all of them are the most relevant starters, but there are some very relevant. Generation 1 starters, Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard are all very relevant starters. And obviously all the moves are going to be Hydro Cannon for the water, we're going to have Frenzy Plant for the grass, and we're going to have Blast Burn for the fire. As far as Generation 2 goes, we have the Megadium, which is definitely a relevant Pokemon. We have the Feraligatr, which is a little bit under, but it does have some pretty good moves, and it does have Ice Fang, which can be used in certain situations, and it does do work. And then we also have the Typhlosion. Typhlosion, pretty powerful, takes a little bit longer for Pokemon to charge up, but definitely does work. Then we're going to go on to Generation 3, probably the most dominant Pokemon in the game as far as the starters go is going to be the Swampert with the Hydro Cannon. It is a must-have move on that Pokemon, does a ton of work, so this may be a Pokemon that you consider doing if you have like a rank 1 PvP and you already evolved it, it doesn't have the move. This would be a great time for you to go ahead and catch that Pokemon up if it's very relevant for your team. And then we have the Sceptile. Sceptile, however, it does get some other moves. So just check out PvPoke and see if in the league you're going to be using it, if Frenzy Plant is the most relevant, because in the Ultra League, that Frenzy Plant is not the recommended moveset. So just be careful with that Pokemon as far as using an Elite TM on. And then we also have the Blaziken. Blaziken does work. It's very powerful. It is a little bit glassy. So be careful if you're going to use this Pokemon. It has to be used right to be able to be effective, which is going to lead us into Generation 4 starters. We have Torterra with Frenzy Plant. It does charge a little bit slower. So be careful if you're using this Pokemon. Then we have Infernape, not the best choice for your Elite TM. I'm just going to come out and say it. And then finally we have Empoleon. Empoleon is a beast. It has a lot of resistances. It does charge slow, but it does work, and Hydro Cannon is a must move on this Pokemon. And then if we're checking out some other Community Day Pokemon, we have the Mamoswine with the Ancient Power. Probably not the best use of your TM, but definitely if you're going to use it, make sure to do your homework because Ancient Power did get nerfed. We have the Draco Meteor on the Dragonite. So the only scenario that I would use the Draco Meteor on the Dragonite for, it's like that one-hit KO move like the Dialga. It obviously takes a long time to charge, but if your opponent doesn't have shields and you come through with the Draco Meteor, it does a lot of work pretty much to every Pokemon. So that would be a good scenario for that. We also have Outrage on the Salamence. The one downfall to the Salamence is it's definitely a raid attacker. It does not have the stability to be in the PvP because it gets Dragon Tail instead of Dragon Breath. However, if at some point it ever gets Dragon Breath, this would be a very high contender. Then we also have the Metagross, which we did talk about. Meteor Mash is a must-have moveset on this Pokemon. It does a lot of work. So definitely, if you have a Pokemon, it's 100% IV maxed out, you probably are not going to get another one that's that good. You may consider doing it for this Pokemon. It is definitely one of the top 5, I do believe now, since the Mewtwo with the Psystrike and the Psychic got buffed, attackers in the game with the Meteor Mash on that Pokemon. Without it, it's very far down there. And then we also have the Rhyperior with the Rock Wrecker. It's a very common Pokemon. That's just one that I definitely love the move, but also at the same time, you have to be careful of what you're using. And then finally, we have the Licky as well as the Lickitung that's gonna have Body Slam. So if you do decide to use this Pokemon, it's pretty relevant in the Ultra League. You're going to want to make sure that this is gonna be the one to use. You have the 100% IV or whatever it is to you. That one can also be boosted all the way to level 41 as Best Buddy and be under 2,500. So go ahead and check that one out if you're gonna choose to use it. But if you guys do have these Pokemon and you're like, I have a 100% IV Beldum and it's gonna be in December and I don't need it right now, make sure to wait and just be patient as possible. There's nothing worse in this game, and we've learned about this, than going gung-ho and evolving something like a lot of these Pokemon and then being like, oh my gosh, I need something to help me out down the road. Elite TM, and now they're very valuable, so now you're leveraged in the wrong direction, when if we were proactive and we knew about community days, which we do about in this current day, we would be sitting in a proactive state, saving our really good Pokemon so that we could be ahead of the game. And then I'm just gonna do some honorable mention Pokemon. We have Politoed with Earthquake. If you're going to use it for the PvP Ultra League, it can go all the way to level 41, as I mentioned in my other video. If you wanna check it out, you can check it out up here. And it's gonna have Earthquake to be able to be relevant. Additionally, we have the Alakazam that did get Psychic since Psychic got a buffed, which is a legacy move, so that could be a Pokemon that you may consider. Another glassy Pokemon, we have Umbreon with the Last Resort, so if you're going to be using Foul Play, Last Resort, and PvP, and that's the moveset that you're choosing, you can definitely do that. And then we also have the Dugong. The unfortunate thing about the Dugong, to make it as powerful as it needs to be, it needs to have Ice Shard and Icy Wind combination, which would require 2 TMs. So if you're going to go after the Dugong, just make sure that you are prepared to do both of them, because they are both legacy moves on this Pokemon. And then the Lapras is going to have legacy moves as well with Ice Shard. It's going to have Ice Beam as well as Dragon Pulse on there. So Dragon Pulse, since dragons are going to be weak to ice, maybe not the best use of your Elite TM, even though it is very cool to see that move on that Pokemon. I do have a couple from back in the day that do have it. So as far as these Pokemon, just make sure to take your time. Figure out which ones work best for you. Maybe if you have one that's not the best IVs, try it out before you go ahead to make sure, because there's nothing worse than using a very precious resource on something that may become available at some point. You may hatch 100% Beldum, you may come into one, you may be able to evolve it, but just make sure to use it to the best of your resources. Like, granted, if you don't have too much Stardust, you already maxed the Metagross, it's 100% IV, you don't know if you're gonna power another one up at some point or another, and you wanna Elite TM it away from Psychic, and you want to get it, the Meteor Mash, may be warranted. So take your time, guys, enjoy. Let me know in the comments below if you have a specific Pokemon that you are going to Elite TM, or you're gonna use my advice to save it for something in the near future. So thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy your Abra day. You get as many shinies as you possibly can. And thank you to all my likers, commenters, subscribers, Patreon members, everybody who takes their support, subscription, participation to the next level. I'm gonna see you guys out on the next video. Peace! I just want to take a moment and sincerely thank all of my Patreon members, everybody that has taken their subscription to the next level and chosen to support me on this platform. I greatly appreciate you guys. As a growing channel and really trying to grow and improve as much as I possibly can, I really appreciate the extra support. You guys mean the absolute world to me. I cannot wait to connect with you soon, and I appreciate you guys all for being a part of the Trainer Club. I will see you guys out on the next video.